Everybody, thank you for coming to our 9/11 ceremony. If you could just bring your attention to the flagpole for the presentation of the colors.
Turn, hot turn,
Attack, hot!
carry, colors. Forward, hoot. Halt! Out! Return. Upbound. Hit. Port. Up. Parade. Hit.
Get caught, parade, west.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I would like to begin by thanking the Prescott Police Department, the Prescott Fire Department, as well as the students and teachers of Prescott High School for joining us for this time of remembrance. The actual day of September 11, 2001 is for most of us students a vague memory, if we remember it at all. However, we are still aware of the tragedy and loss of that day. But what leaves a larger impact is not the pain, but how we came together as a nation and as a community. 2,977. That's how many people were killed that day and how many flags are in the grass this morning. Yesterday, we had some miscommunication with who would be setting up the flags, so after school there were 4 of us there to put them in the ground. But as we started, more and more students joined us to place the flags. The best part was that we never had to explain what it was for. We came together as a school community to recognize those that lost their lives, just as the entire nation did 13 years ago. So let this day serve as a reminder, not just of the terrible tragedy, but how we came together as a country and a community and united as Americans. Also, we cannot forget to thank the heroes of that day, our first responders, who do so much to keep our country safe every day. So with that in mind, I would like to welcome Prescott Fire Department Battalion Chief Lucas to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to be here. I want to tell you a little story about my experience when it came to 9/11. I was actually cleaning a house the day it happened, and little did I know, a week later, I would be flying into LaGuardia Airport and flying right over the 9/11 site. And I think one thing that I want to remember about today is how resilient we are as Americans. And here's my story. When we flew into New York City, I was surprised at how small the 9/11 site was. I thought it was going to be huge, like the whole world had gone down. But from the air, it actually looked very small. And then about 2 days later, a contingent of Prescott Fire Department personnel went up onto the site to help with some of the recovery for a day. On that day, we were able to recover 3 firefighters that had perished, and anytime you recovered a firefighter, the whole operation on the site would shut down. And the then fire chief, because the original fire chief perished in the collapse, would fly in on a helicopter, some prayers would be said, and then the firefighter would be taken to the nearest morgue in the back of an ambulance and under a police escort, and then work would resume on the pile again. And when I got to the pile, again, I was surprised at how small it was. I thought it was going to be gigantic, but it was actually a manageable little span of earth that had collapsed. New York City was alive and well. And of particular interest to me was how, again, how resilient the people were in New York City. No matter where you went, no matter what you did, if you were wearing a uniform or resembled any type of military person, public safety person, everything was free. You got on a subway, it was free. Even when we flew back to Arizona, they put us on a plane and gave us our own row of seats and put us into the pilot's quarters while we were waiting for our plane. And I was just amazed. And I thought that was probably in my career, in the last 20 years, the biggest thing that would happen to me coming from a pretty small community and being a public safety person. That was until a year and a half ago when we experienced what happened here in Prescott. And I witnessed the same exact thing. The resiliency of the American person and how kind they are and how beautiful they are and how much they give of themselves when we're down. So if I could leave any impression on any of you today, when we look back at 9/11, yes, it was a sorrowful time, but I want to look at it as how resilient people are. And I don't want to be afraid of what can happen in the world. And I just want to think about how wonderful the people are in this nation that surround us and how supportive we are of one another. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Lucas. At this time, I'd like to welcome Mrs. Tillage to come say a few words.
Good morning. Students, if you're having a hard time hearing, you are welcome to come closer to the flags here on the grass if that would make it easier for you. First off, I would like to start by saying thank you to our Junior ROTC program for setting this up today for us. We are joining the nation in celebrating and remembering the almost 3,000 people who died 13 years ago today. And as was said already very well and articulate, was that not only are we saddened by the loss of all of these lives, but we're bonded by what happened on that exact day. When that first tower hit, all of us of my generation and older know exactly where we were when that happened, and the story was already shared with you. I was in my living room when the first plane hit the Twin Tower, and at that point we had no idea it was a terrorist attack. We thought it was just an accident. And I remember kissing my little twins that weren't even a year old goodbye, and I went on to work. By the time I got to work, the phone was ringing off the hook, and we found out that another plane had hit, and it was truly a terrorist attack. The way people responded in this nation is very widespread. Some of us cried, some of us prayed, some of us went to school, some of us went about our day, but by the end of the day, once we realized how large of an incident this was and how many people's lives were touched on that day 13 years ago, we all felt insecure and we all felt fear. And the one thing that made us all resilient, as the language was today used, are the people standing over here in uniform. When we see these people, any public service, whether they're firemen or police officers, EMTs, we feel a sense of security and a sense of support. And all of a sudden, that burden of tragedy is lifted because of the gentlemen and the ladies that walk in these uniforms today. And so I just want to honor all of you and say thank you. The Yarnell tragedy, many of you know exactly where you were when that tragedy hit. And we leaned on the people of this community to get us through that tragedy. It really does bind us. It brings all of us together. Many of you are standing next to strangers right now, and you may have a conversation with them, and I encourage you to have a conversation with them. Where were you when the Yarnell 19 happened? People of my generation, I encourage you to have a conversation. Where were you when the world stopped turning, in the words of Alan Jackson? As we leave today, I'm going to ask that song be played as we're going on our daily business, going to class or going back to work, because I really want you to remember today, not necessarily the sadness of what happened, but the heroes who rose out of that tragedy. Many of those heroes were in uniform, but some were not. So I would like to share with you a story about a gentleman named Ron Fazio. On September 11th, 2001, Ron Fazio was one of the survivors of the first plane to hit the World Trade Center. He walked out of the building. As soon as he got out of the building and realized the tragedy, he turned around and went back into the building. The building was burning, but it was his intention to save as many friends, colleagues, and strangers as he could. Razio held the door open to get as many people out alive as he could. But sadly, Ron Fazio did not make it out alive. But there is a tribute to him. There is a foundation called Hold the Door. And that foundation is because of the heroes, just like Ron Fazio, many of the firefighters, EMTs, and public service workers, police officers that went into that building to save the lives of others. That is what I want you to remember. Remember those heroes. Many of those have flags in front of us today. So that song will play as we exit today. I would just like to say thank you again to everyone. I truly thank all of the servicemen and women of our community, and we are blessed by all of you. Thank you.